Welcome to another Gothamchess openings video. Today I'm going to teach you the Scandinavian Defense with the black pieces. Timestamps are on the video player. First we're going to look at the theory and how to play it, and then I will take on 2 of my Twitch subscribers after that. There are also moves in the description. You can post those into any PGN reader or software that you would like. I have nothing else to say. Here we go. The Scandinavian Defense begins after white plays the move e4. If you're looking for something with the queen's pawn, it's time to click away. No, please don't click away, then my engagement rate goes down. So e4, and black responds with d5. More traditionally, e5 is kind of considered classical. Then there's the French defense, the Sicilian. The Scandinavian defense forces the issue right away. And one of the reasons it's really good for beginners and intermediate players looking to attack with the black pieces is that white is already going to be confused. They're like, wait a minute, I already have to make a decision. So obviously, first we're going to look at pawn takes d5, because that is how the opening works. Decisions have to be made move by move. If white just leaves the pawn there, you will take it, and then we'll look at that stuff. So takes, and now even here, black has a few options. Black can play knight to f6 before taking back. Black can play c6. That's known as the Kloosterbouwer gambit. But queen takes d5 is kind of the go-to. Now, we are going to look at the classical move knight c3. Well, it's bad. I mean, I thought it's bad to bring out the queen. Yes and no. If you put the queen to safety forever, it's going to be fine. If you play queen here and lose your queen 3 different ways, that is why you're really taught to safeguard your queen, because everyone's afraid you're going to lose it, but it's like sending your kids out on the public transportation. Ultimately, you know, they're going to have to learn someday, right? So the queen has to be trusted. First, we're going to look at this, then we're going to look at knight to f3, and then we'll kind of look at everything else. So knight to c3. Here there are 3 ways to play the Scandinavian defense. The most common is to rotate the queen over to a5. That puts the queen on the edge of the board, and then you can develop the rest of your pieces accordingly. The other way is to bring it all the way home. International master John Bartholomew, famous for many chess openings, not even chess openings, just instructive chess content, likes to bring his queen all the way back. And then there's queen to d6 as well. First, I'm going to look at primarily moving the queen out to the edge of the board. If you move the queen out to the edge of the board, the game might proceed as follows. White should play d4. Knight and this pawn out is the best way for white to play this position. If white plays this position in any other way, it's already a little bit suboptimal, just so you know. So d4, and now we develop our knight to f6. We are mostly going to be castling short side. So our development will look like this. We need to develop our light squared bishop, then we need to play e6. Why? Why can't we just play e6? Because then we block this bishop in. Do you see how that works? So this bishop needs to come out to one of these 2 squares. We will play e6, and then we will develop this bishop and castle. Now, if at any point our queen is targeted, we always have a very useful move, pawn to c6. In fact, it's so useful, some people even play it now. Because what c6 does is it allows you to bring the queen back to c7. But I said more often than not, we castle short. There are positions where, for example, if white does not occupy the center with the pawn, we can very quickly castle queenside. That would turn the position into something a little bit more aggressive. That might look something like this. If the kings are castled on opposite sides, it means we're going to have a war, because we can launch our pawns at their king, and they can launch their pawns at our king and our queen first. So castling on the same side leads to a bit more of a peaceful game, whereas the opposite side castling is, I mean, it would lead to something, it's more risk, more reward, but obviously you might lose. And you say, well, what's the difference? Why can't I play this one way all the time, Levy? Why do I have to choose depending on how my opponent plays? Well, here's the thing. If the opponent plays d4, you can't put your knight out. Why not? Because they're going to attack it. That's how chess works. Move by move, the game goes into its own unique territory. So depending on how white sets up, that is how you are going to set up. You put your queen out to the side, and then knight f3, you develop your bishop, right? I've included the move h3, for example, with the bishop coming back here. But, you know, for example, if even without h3, or with h3, let's say white just plays something like bishop to e2 to get out of getting pinned, you can play, for instance, knight to c6 is an option to try to castle queenside in this position. Because if you get attacked, you have this. Right, so you can already try to castle queenside, or you can play e6, they can castle, you'll play bishop to e7, for example. Maybe they're going to try to come after your queen. We already know what to do if that happens. We play c6, and then if, let's say, white plays rook e1, this is the kind of a structure that you get with the Scandinavian. When you've castled on the same side in the Scandinavian defense, your game is going to be a lot slower. You're going to be looking for a pawn break in the center. You're going to be looking to put your rook on d8. This rook will go to c8 when the knight develops, because this is where the board is going to open up. If the d and the c pawn disappear, you want your rooks on these open lines. So the f rook to d8, this rook to c8. This doesn't have to trade. That's the other thing. If h3, maybe you take, but to be honest, you could bring it back. You're completely fine. So that is really, in a nutshell, in about, I don't know, 5.5. What's the time of the video? 5 minutes and 42 seconds. That literally is the theory of the queen a5 Scandinavian. Grandmasters like to put their bishop on f5, not on g4. Why? Because it's considered here to be best for white to play not bishop e2, which I showed you, but to play g4. This is considered the best according to opening theory. The likelihood of you facing this, probably, well, maybe g4 you'll face, but the likelihood of you facing then knight to e5, which is one of the best moves, and then h4, which is the other, best move. At this point, you're either 2200 or you're playing a cheater. So yeah, I mean, that's really the truth. If you're watching this and you're a titled player, this is why at the highest level, this kind of strategy of knight f3, bishop e2 is not played. Normally, white is playing g4, knight e5. And so if you put your bishop on f5, you'll notice that the position that we get actually looks strikingly similar, except the bishop is on f5 and not pinning the knight. But I recommend for most of you to put the bishop on g4. I think it's a bit more forcing. And the truth is, the likelihood of you facing that computer line, which is considered good for white at the highest of levels, is pretty unlikely. But again, you can mess around with both. Okay, that's that. We've mainly looked at queen a5. To be honest, we can also look at queen d6. The right way to play this setup, just sliding back one square, is like this. It's very important you play a6 so that they cannot play knight to b5. Now your setup is bishop out and knight out and castle long. When you put the queen on d6, you have to go long, okay? Because then you're going to stockpile pressure. The best move here for white, g3, to play bishop g2 and bishop f4 attacking your queen. The likelihood of you facing this, I mean, if you're an intermediate player, maybe a little bit more likely, but I would say 1500 and less. The chance of you getting g3, bishop f4 is, I mean, it's very little. The fact that people are, and again, you can just continue to your development, and if they play bishop f4, you can always go here and attack their pawn. It's not the end of the game if they play the best way to try to get an advantage. But there is also the move queen d8, which obviously is not a bad move. Queen d8 looks very similar to queen a5, except you volunteer to put your, right, it looks very similar. So the setup that you play after you move your queen, very consistent. Very consistent, and you ultimately decide which way you want to castle. Now, we've really only looked at knight c3. What if white plays like d4? So against d4, you can just play knight f6. And if they play knight c3, it's a transposition. So now it's the same thing it was before, just with a different move order, right? Now your queen can move there, or back to d6, and it becomes the same thing. If they attack you with two pawns, I mean, generally queen e4 check is good, because if they block with the bishop, you take the pawn. If they block with the knight, I don't know, that's just kind of stupid looking. That's my evaluation. You attack with the center, you finish your development, you go here, look for bishop b4 check. Also on d4, you can just kind of attack the center with the pawn, and if they take you, you can mess up their right to castle. d4 is not a very good move. It is much more common to play knight f3. I actually recommend this in my course on e4. And here what I like is I like to play bishop out and go for a very quick long castle. In my course in this position, I recommend h3, bishop to h5, and knight c3. And the idea being that you attack the queen and force it to go back, and then here you can create some play with like b4, for example, very aggressive, trying to attack on the queen side. Again, the likelihood of you facing an unprepared opponent who will play like this, 0. The likelihood of some of the more, intermediate players watching who play somebody who does have an openings course, paid content that they like study, like book or video, well, then you have to be a little bit more prepared. The point of this video is to give you the intro. That's why I put the moves in the description, to get you thinking about how to play the positions. But ultimately, you do need that extra layer of analysis to go the extra mile. But if you're watching this as a beginner and, you just kind of want to get to playing, by all means, this is about as much as you need. You need to know that against knight c3, you have options. And against knight to f3, for example, you can just develop quickly and try to castle queenside with a quick e5 after. So something like this, knight c6, and later you can go like this, and even start some sort of attack on this side of the board. If in the very beginning, white just, like I said, leaves the pawn, then you take it. If they play knight c3, you can turn this into a French defense, you can turn this into a Caro-Kann defense, or you can play pawn takes. And then if they take you, you can actually play this. And the funny thing about this is that if they go back, welcome back to the Scandinavian defense, queen a5, queen d8 is completely fine. If they just move somewhere else, well, then you can finish your development. The most important thing is not to get caught by the Tennyson gambit. This is a very tricky gambit. The idea being knight to g5, they want to take the pawn back. There's a few ways to play against this. The easiest is just being e5. Just play e5, counterattack the knight, finish your development, and you're fine. If white plays a move like d3, defending the knight, there's a few ways to go about this. Knight c6 is good. Don't go gobbling every single pawn in a gambit. Oftentimes you can take one pawn, and while your opponent is spending time winning that pawn back, you finish your development like a normal person, and you're all good. That's basically it. That is literally how you play the Scandinavian. I guess I haven't covered pushing. If they push, this kind of looks like a Caro-Kann. I would say the best way to play this, put your bishop out, then play e6, then play c5, and then play knight c6. It would be helpful for you to study the Caro-Kann advanced variation so that you can tell the similarities in the pawn structure, okay? Now that you heard me say that, Caro-Kann advanced variation, go look that up afterward if you kind of want a supplemental material. I now am going to play against two of my subscribers who were so gracious to play a game against me. Here is a 1200 blitz player, and then I will play a 1800 rated blitz player. I am going to play d5. I don't know what my opponent is going to play. If they play knight f3, I'm hoping they play knight c3, but maybe they'll play knight f3. This person could have my openings course, which would be a little bit... Okay, they play d4, which is fine. Let's play knight f6. We don't know if they're going to play c4 or knight c3. E5 is also good, but my hope is that, yeah, right, exactly. My opponent plays this. I think I'm going to go to a5 just because I want to play the main line. I want to show you just the main position. I mean, you yourself can experiment. I wanted to give you all the options, and the rest is up to you. Okay, cool. One thing I actually didn't even cover, which I'm just going to cover in the middle of playing that game, there is also a gambit, just so I have it. There is also this gambit, b4. I don't remember what this is called, but you just take, bring this back, and then you play the position normally. It's actually a very legitimate gambit, though. Okay, knight f3, knight c3, bishop to g4. It's everything that we have planned. Now, we know here that h3 is the best move. If my opponent plays h3 and g4 and knight e5, I mean, I don't know, I'll be extremely impressed, because that is considered the critical main line. Okay, h3 is played. I don't think we're gonna get g4, knight e5. Like I said, if we do, yeah, okay. Yeah, highly unlikely. But now we play e6, and to be honest, my opponent is leaving the door open for me to castle queenside. And suddenly I'm getting very devious thoughts. I'm thinking knight c6. The only drawback of castling queenside in the Scandinavian is the fact that your queen doesn't really have a comfortable kind of waiting area, if that makes sense. But I'm going to go for it, and let's see what happens. I'm going to play knight c6. I think this is considered suboptimal, because here, bishop b5 is a very good move, if my opponent plays bishop b5. So like I said, I'm allowing them to play... Wow! Oh, beautiful! Great job! Excellent. Honestly, fantastic. Because now, again, if I go long, they're going to take, and my king's a little bit open. I'm not sure if I like that very much. Very risky. Should I show you all how to play that position is the question with long castles. Very risky. You know what? Let's do it just to learn, okay? Let's do it just to learn the pros and the cons, right? So I'm volunteering a damaging of my own structure. My king is open, but we are on opposites. Oh, no, 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 no. Well, I mean, maybe that'll happen to you all. So there you go. Oh, no. Oh, Aiden, it was so good. It was such a good game. I feel so bad. I almost didn't want to take, to be honest. So knight takes f7 is threatened. I can't guard it because they'll take me. I guess bishop b4. I mean, the best move here is just to move the rook and then let them take. But I'm curious if there's something else I can do. Bishop b4, knight f7, bishop c3. I actually think that's completely... Oh, wait. This is also a threat. Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is actually not so bad for my opponent. Maybe rook takes d4? Sacrifice and then just pick up the knight? That's an option. Huh. It's not over. You know, but I'm going to go bishop b4. Oh, man. Aiden's very upset. Aiden's literally writing in Discord as we speak. I said I'm so sorry. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Sometimes when subscribers play, they play a little bit too hastily, but that's okay. Now you see the different tactical ideas of this opening, and you see that even strong players make mistakes. So hopefully that's motivation that this is good opening for you to play. As far as this position, now I'm okay losing a point or two of material because I am the only one with the queen on the board. Not to rub it in, but it's true. The more pieces that I trade off the board, having that queen is going to be the ultimate deciding factor. I can take, and I think that's fine. If they take my bishop, I take back, and slowly I am chipping away at my opponent's pieces. Of course, they really should take and then move the rook. I will then pick up this next pawn. That's the problem with the queen. It's just too OP. I mean, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Anyway, I always tell my subscribers to play on, to not necessarily resign, but that's just because you never know what's going to happen, and it's still decent practice to try to create counterplay in a position. So let's play rook d8. I'm going to pick this pawn up. I'm going to try to play this pretty fast. Okay, take. Now I can actually change my lens completely. I can go directly for the king. So you'll notice that when that trade happened, that side of the board opened up. But I'm just going to take on d4 and simplify. Okay, rook is threatening this. Let's take on c2. If rook takes pawn, queen takes. So rook is threatening, and then rook is threatening. I guess I can take another pawn. The more pawns we take, the better. Oh, Aiden. Aiden, no. I'm sad. All right, we're going to analyze this a little bit. And, everything's going to be all right. Let's just push. If Aiden takes this, it's rook d1 mate. Otherwise, we're just going to push. If rook e1, the easiest thing to do is just sacrifice. I mean, it's maybe not the easiest thing, but it does the job because the rook is cutting off the king from here. We will go here to not hang our own rook. And then we will promote. And then c2. And then c1. Again, very important that we held the rook there. And now we will go for a ladder mate with check, check, and mate. So this is a very, very easy technique there. Let's analyze that very briefly. I had this moment where I played knight c6, and I'm going to tell you all right now that objectively speaking, it's probably not great. I went for a position where I castle long and I opened my king. The position is still very much in the balance. It's not like I'm losing, but it's a little bit risky, especially if white plays g4. Again, this critical move, but volunteering yourself for this position, brave stuff. Because if queen to h5, I mean, and then all these pawns start rolling, and the bishop, oh, you know, not easy. I can also just play c6. And again, if the bishop lines up an attack on my queen, I finish my development, I bring my queen back, and I castle, and we already know how to play that position with bishop on e7. For example, castles, and then bringing the queen back, rook to the middle, and slowly expanding. Very nice and solid position after short castle, but a little bit passive. To be honest, I think you will win and maybe lose many more games if you play knight c6. It's just a more swashbuckling approach. You know, you roll up the sleeves, you're like, let's have a go, right? Like hockey players, you know, just sometimes you gotta fight. Some people fight for a profession, and some people in hockey, you know, they just fight because they want to have a little bit of fun. If my opponent had not played the move knight to e5, still it's a very complicated position. For example, if my opponent had finished the development, I would have immediately utilized the open file for the rook to maybe play c5 and break in the middle. I also might have rotated my queen back to try to put some pressure here. And now g4 isn't very good because we take, and it's check is the big difference, and we pick up the knight here. So it's a very complicated position, this knight c6 move. And if my opponent hadn't played bishop b5 here and maybe played bishop e3, well, then I get a great position, actually. Long castles, this is a super interesting position. Maybe I play bishop d6, rook g8 and g5, try to attack on this side of the board. Maybe that's how we go about it. Maybe I play bishop b4, hit the knight, something like that, right? But that's basically how the position works. For the next game, I'm playing a stronger player. I'm playing a player who is quite strong, rated about 1800, I think. Yeah, literally 1801. I was off by a point. Time to blow up the computer. Now, this person told me that before the game that they were going to prepare my course because they have my course and they were going to play that line against me. So knight f3, we know that we go bishop to g4. My course goes bishop to e2, knight c6. Here, I think I have castles. Can play a few different things here. I'm going to play long castles. He's showing you how to play this. All right, this person... this person's playing all of my ideas against me. I feel very much under pressure. Let's go bishop h5. They're going to play knight c3. And now queen d7, and my opponent probably will play the move b4. So b4 is what I have. So this is a very well-prepared opponent, right? This opponent knows everything about the... This is very suspenseful. Do they know that the move is b4 here? Please? Do they know that the move is b4? Don't check the notes. Don't check the notes, Cloud Main. Remember that the move is b4. Oh, they've played b4. Okay. Yeah. So this is opposite side castling at its finest. I'm not so worried about b5. I'm significantly more worried about getting steamrolled later down the line. So for now, I'm just going to develop my knight. If b5, there's a nice little trick here with bishop takes f3. And the point is that if pawn takes, I bring my bishop back. So at this point, it's a little bit more theoretical knowledge, but this is also okay. So we play knight to d4. And now I think there's a move here, queen to f5, which is very good for black. I think my opponent has to play d3 to stop queen f5. But I can also just play h5, g5 and go completely insane. So basically, like, after h5, g5, one of us is going to lose the game. G5 is super aggressive, and I'm not really sure I like it, because I don't want to lose in a video, you know, trying to play an opening, and then you're going to be like, oh my god, this idiot lost this. I'm never going to play this opening if this person lost. I have to make a good case for this opening. So here's queen f5. The point is that I'm looking to take the bishop and damage the structure. I'm also looking for this. So don't be so afraid in these positions of this opposite side castling attack. In this case, you know, it's all good. Now we take with the knight, and we are guaranteed to damage the structure, right? So we've taken, and now the structure is a little bit loose. With this loose structure, now we have more of an endgame position. Maybe g6 and bishop g7 is an option. Just very solid e6, not really looking to complicate the matters is good. Knight d5 could be a trade that I'm looking for. Honestly, I don't know. I can also go e5 to just take space. I think I'm going to go here and develop the bishop on the long diagonal, but to be completely honest with you, I don't know what the best option here is. It's a very tough position. I'm also anticipating that bishop e3 is coming, which is going to attack this pawn. Like, this attack is not over, you know? They're still going to try to walk me down on this side, and I'm going to try to activate my bishop and really try to get this down to an endgame where there's less pieces, because those pawns from my opponent are not going to be very good. This move is looking to make a trade. They would like to trade and undouble their structure. I'm a fan of my opponent, but I don't think I am going to take that so lightly. I don't want to trade and help them. I'm just being honest. I don't want that. I think bishop b2 is going to happen now. I can also move my rook up with the intention to move it over and target the weak pawns. If I take, they're going to take my bishop, and then my rook is under attack. If I were to move my rook, well, first of all, let's go rook d5, because I just really like where this rook is. I like the prospects. Knight f6, I will take. And the difference with this big trade is that we end up in a rook endgame where still the structure for my opponent is bad. And these pawns are what we call overextended. They aren't really back and supporting the structure. They're a little bit too far, right? So, okay, interesting. They take like that. Well, now I'm not going to take with the bishop. I'm going to take with the pawn. So I've transformed the endgame into bishop versus knight. I'm going to push my pawn up a square, and my bishop is going to see the other side of the board. This endgame is a great example of why the bishop is a little bit better than the knight, and the opponent immediately blunders. They forget about this diagonal, and now we are going to win material. And it's not going to end very well for the opponent. Knight g5 also looks like a decent move, but it is further cause of problems, because h6 will trap that knight, I think. So that's kind of interesting. I can take bishop for the rook, but if h6, the knight is trapped. So it's actually probably better to stay a bishop up than trade the bishop for the rook. I know I can take, but pause for a moment. If the knight takes me and I move over, the knight is just completely trapped on f7. It couldn't go back, and it couldn't go back not just because those pawns were weak, but they were literally in the way. So that was kind of nice. We managed to absorb a good amount of preparation from my opponent, who knew what I was going to play and came fully prepared. We mitigated the damage. They played one bad move out of the course's preparation, and we traded pieces, and now we have an endgame. They tried to take the second pawn. That's not a bad decision. To be honest, I could have maybe taken the rook now and basically said this knight is trapped. That's actually so funny. I could have done that. I could have taken and then brought the rook back, but okay, that would have been a little bit too much. Okay, now rook h8, because obviously when the bishop moves, I'd like to open it and attack there. King g2 is going to happen. I think what I need to do is bring a second rook to the h-file, and again, these overextended pawns are not doing white any favors. The rook is going to mobilize, the bishop will rotate back and hit this. So how do we do this the best way? Maybe, yeah, let's just bring the bishop immediately to c5. This is called a reroute, so we're going to... you know, maybe I'm not doing this the right way. I don't know. Maybe g5, g4. Maybe cleaning this up with g5, g4. Right, of course, the opponent wants to push in. I'm going to take, and then I'm going to push. I'm going to take and push. Now the pawn is in the way of the rook. The rook cannot infiltrate. We're going to move the bishop out, and we're okay. Bishop c5, and now full blockade. So we've completely blockaded the pawns, which means we negate the movement of their pieces. Rook to e1 is the best move looking to infiltrate. And rook to e1 will be met with this. In fact, I probably could have just played that move right there. But now let me play g5. I've got that other idea to break here, break it all open, and get to the king. I also can take on b6. I'm not converting this the best way. I'm playing faster than I can actually think. And that's kind of why I'm making some slip-ups. Let's go rook here. Now white has to play here, and then we will combine the two ideas. So we're playing rook h4, and now g4. They cannot take because of the open file here. So take, and we're going to get in. And then ultimately the game is going to be decided on that side of the board. So a pretty decent 30-minute video. I mean, I know we're kind of wrapping things up here. It's a very easy opening to play. You'll have to just basically not lose your queen, and you'll have your opponents on the back foot after e4. You're gonna play d5, and I think you're going to be in great shape. Let's take on h3. And now we'll probably push. If the king goes to h2, I'm just gonna lock the king on the h file. So that's kind of funny. If the king goes here, I'm just gonna not even let it get off. They don't do that, unfortunately, for me. Let's play h2. Now the rook can't move. If pawn up, then bishop slides all the way down, locking the rook away. Oh, that's very brutal there for white. Bishop to g1. That rook is in jail for the rest of the game. And now I can probably just turn my attention to... Well, I can turn my attention in a few ways here. Maybe just rook f3 and like this, or the b6 pawn, or even bup, and just try to walk up that side of the board. So I'm monitoring whether or not I can be attacked, but it's not looking very likely that I can be attacked. And now I will take. And I think the opponent's going to play a little bit longer. Like I said, I always tell my subscribers, like, no need to resign. You're not impressing anybody if you resign early. Might as well play it out. But of course, Cloud Main is 1800. So Cloud Main might resign because at 1800, you more often than not are resigning this position just because you trust the other 1800 to beat you. But again, you don't impress anybody if you resign. So let's play check. And I still have to be a little careful. Let's give a check. The king has to go this way. I'm going to go rook h3, trying to trade. Rook c7 is a move. It is most certainly a move. And now I'm going to play... I could do a few things, I guess. King. Here, for example, if rook takes... Okay, I'm going to give a check, forcing the king to the back rank. Obviously, rook trade is... you know, a thing. And now rook a1. And we're threatening a mate from both directions. Potentially, if I get my rook also to the second rank. So we're threatening rook a1 mate. And as we threaten rook a1 mate, it cannot be stopped. So king f8, little zigzag. The rook cannot check us anymore. That's actually a good move. That's a good find. But now I will go rook a2. And now the opponent cannot stop mate from both directions. So rook h1 is a mate threat there. And it's unstoppable. I'm threatening a mate from both sides. The rook, yeah, well, I take, and that's the end of the game. So that was a good game. That was a good game. Knight f3, the easiest thing to do. Get your development like this. And now if white were to play something like d4, you already have tactics. You can like take, for example. Take, and just take this pawn. It's the whole idea of this setup. When you have this stack on the d file, you'll take the knight. That's what you're going to try to do and take on d4. And if white plays like, you know, d3, well then you can play e5. And you get a great position. And then you can play... knight, queen, bishop, etc. But hopefully this opening serves you well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're a long-time viewer, thanks so much for watching again. If this is the first video or one of the first few that you've watched from my channel, I've got more videos like this. I've got many playlists of openings, tactics solving, strategy, game reviews, recaps of tournaments, and so on. Hit that subscribe button. At the time of recording this, 54% of people aren't subscribed, which is crazy because we have 625,000 subs, which just shows you how much potential is out there, ladies and gentlemen. So moves are in the description. Once again, feel free to copy paste them anywhere you'd like to go study them, and I'll see you in the next video.